Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today what I wanted to do is some sort of a video that I've tried to actually put together before. And I remember videos like these usually get a lot of criticism because, people say things like you're comparing apples to oranges or whatever, but it's very difficult not to make these comparisons because some of the systems are actually quite solid if you were to ask me. Now, what am I talking about? So in the Division 2's PvP, one of the biggest challenges that I've seen that a lot of players have expressed, and I'm talking players like Lyrical Fighter. I mean, this is somebody who extremely PvPs in the Division game, and a few others have said is there is a big, huge measure of a lot of the different skills in the game that make their way into the PvP that don't necessarily make it a fun experience. So, think about something like the chem launcher, think about something like your hives, think about even the bombardier drone. My colleague here in the YouTube space, Identity, made a bombardier drone build that is actually pretty good. It's insane how good this actually is. So when you think about all of these things making their way into the PvP of the Division 2, you have to ask yourself, I wonder if these things have ruined the experience so bad that it's very challenging for players to be able to, in any way reconcile the PvP systems, and still try to enjoy the game. Because those systems, they're more fitting for a player like me in this game. I mean, somebody who doesn't really want to play fair or who doesn't really want to, deal with all of the nonsense sometimes. I don't want to drop your hive so that you die. You come to my extraction. I have a full loaded 6 skill tier hive. You come there and try to cut that rope, I'm gonna hide in a corner and drop it and you will bleed to death. And so what does this really do though? If you take this into somewhere like, say, conflict, does this really help the conflict experience? I understand if we leave these things in the DZ so that the DZ, open DZ is just a huge shenanigans where you farm, there's drama, but what is the distinction between having those kinds of skills or having those kinds of, I would say, I don't know, having those things inside of a more competitive conflict environment, and how could Massive actually learn from this? So the goal is, that there are systems within the division that could, in my opinion, be, restricted or at least carefully studied and monitored before even taking these things into the main game. And one game that's done it very well is a game like Mortal Kombat 11. Now, like I said in the beginning of this video, people are going to say you're comparing apples to oranges. It's not a fair comparison because, there's no way apples to oranges, is going to anyway make sense or whatever it is. But here's here's the truth. The truth is, a game like Mortal Kombat 11 has done PvP for over 20 something years. They've almost 3 decades. If you were to check it out and be very, very objective about this. And so with that being said, you really have to understand that, just because a video game, is not in the same genre as another video game, you have to be able to say the elements could somewhat be related, and you can actually compare some of those elements and see how some of them have worked out. So let's go into some of these different elements. So in a Division 2, we have a lot of RPG elements, but because it's a shooter, sometimes they seem to hide. You have bleed damage, you have damage over time factors, you have burn damage, you have shock damage, you have all of these things. In a lot of other fighting games out there, not many of these games actually, in a sense, highlight those things. Now, here is my main character here. His name's Kodo Khan. Some of you know, some of you play Mortal Kombat. He's a character that has damage over time that if you actually, activate this particular sunbeam, it does 2 things. It either will it heals him, and it also damages your enemy over time. So it's really weird because if the enemy were to maybe hit me, my health will start to even go back. Let me change the practice options. Let's do our life. Let me do my life bar to be like maybe 10%, and you're gonna see what happens with it, right? So I activate the sun, and at the same time as it's healing me, it's damaging my opponent. So this is one of many systems that are available in the game. This is not just a one-off. Even the character that I have on the other side, which is Kano. Kano also has a different kind of burn damage, but the burn damage does not in any way the burn damage doesn't affect him. The burn damage only affects you because it's a huge I think it's the which is it? It's some. Let me see. It's one of his moves where he actually has a chemical burn. Is it here? It's not in his variation. He has another variation where he has a chemical burn, which can actually toss a bit of chemical on you. And if the chemical is amplified, it then lights into a flame and boom, you're in trouble. So you think about all of these, you put it together and you say, okay, what could these even mean? Like, what did this studio do that made their own PvP kind of a much better experience, if you ask me, than say, a game like The Division. So this is it right here. It's a burn. You see how it is? It's burning me, but it doesn't affect him. And then you have other NPCs that have damage based on ice, some that have damage based on water, some that have damage based on the earth. I mean, there are so many characters. If I go to the fighter select menu, I can pretty much tell you, like, how they've actually structured this game, in the sense that The Division actually has so many more elements that are RPG-esque that I can compare some of these elements together. I mean, a character like Scarlet, she uses blood magic, so blood damage is part of what she uses. Water and some of the elements, Cetrion does all that stuff. Literally, this character will use earth elements and water elements to damage you. It's not crazy. Then you have the classic Sub-Zero and Frost. They both use ice damage. And then you have Scorpion, who also uses fire damage, and then he's got some bleed elements. Cabal has got some Baraka has got some bleed elements as well. So what is this, what are these shenanigans of which I speak? Like, why am I even bothering comparing these to one another? So ideally, if you wanted to go into the fight sequence of this game, when you're playing online, you have multiple layers of PvP. When you get into Mortal Kombat 11, they've actually structured your PvP very, very well, even better than The Division has. So you have your competitive ranked matches where you're able to use specific competitive variations. In fact, in the past, you could only use very specific builds, in the sense that you take your character and add different kinds of specific moves to them. These moves are controlled and restricted. You're forbidden to use specific kinds of moves. In fact, the game won't even let you. Then you have the Versus, where you're able to come in here and just pretty much just throw out all kinds of crazy moves. And then you have King of the Hill, which is pretty much, people go into a lobby and then they fight, and, whoever is kind of like the winner and beating everybody, that's the King of the Hill. You have the AI only matches, which is just you developing your AI and building them, and people can come and challenge them while you're not even there, and then they'll fight for themselves, which is crazy. So when we say in The Division 2 that the PvP doesn't have a lot of game modes, I say, man, the PvP in The Division can actually learn from thinking about different game modes that will work from other games. They don't have to use Mortal Kombat. There's Call of Duty that has a bunch of other game modes. There are all these other shooters out there that do have different kinds of game modes that I believe that The Division's PvP would have really enjoyed, because the reaction from a mode like Last Stand dropped late in The Division 1, which was a game mode done in the Dark Zone, and a lot of people really responded positively to it, myself among them. And so I really thought, for them to be able to, create a more robust experience, these things have to ship with the game. This doesn't have to be something that gets added later down the road. And one thing that they're even lacking is the PvP in The Division 2. They mentioned that other game modes will be coming down the road, and we haven't even seen any of those game modes. I remember in their marketing for the PvP, they basically said this, and it's not shown up yet. Now, this may come with the content that Ubisoft Bucharest is making down the line, but hey, who knows? Anyways, back to what it is that I was actually showing you. So what I mean by restriction is, in the different game modes, you have some skills that you are restricted from using, and you have some moves that you're able to use in a casual PvP. I believe if they create a dark zone, say even in the future division game, they can allow for that dark zone to have all kinds of shenanigans where you're able to use your builds, you're able to use your skills, and all the abilities and everything that you've already finished completing. But then at some point, in some scenarios, they need to find a way to strip everybody of these things. In Division 1, survival actually accomplished that. If you get what I mean, if survival PvP, you could go in there, guns blazing, alone, none of all these shenanigans. And if you had to use a skill, you have to work for it. Well, that mode takes about 45 minutes to an hour to truly enjoy, or kind of get immersed in there. And it had permadeath, and that's a turnoff. But what about a mode where you can spawn back again, but you didn't have all of the overpowered stuff? I think that's where conflict and some other modes can benefit from. I mean, think about even the way they've structured some of their characters. So I'll go into this, character builder where I can actually customize my abilities with one of my favorite characters. This is Frost, and she has a move that's forbidden that you cannot use in competitive scenarios. If you look on the bottom left corner here, it says this is disabled in competitive play. Can't touch it. That's not the only character. A character like Fujin. I think Fujin has got one other move that you cannot even use in competitive play. If I go into his abilities, just right there on top, it's a move called Jetstream. If you look at the top right corner, it says it's disabled in competitive play. So good character, solid move actually. it's a really, really good move, but you cannot use it in competitive play. You go to another character like Devora. Devora has got a move that you cannot use in competitive play as well. Let me go ahead and show you guys so that you guys don't say I'm actually making stuff up. Where is it? It's on the bottom here. Yeah, there it is, Mother Bug. And it actually takes 2 slots. Basically, every player has got 3 slots. Some moves will take 2 slots and some will take 1 slot. So this is a way that the development team have been able to balance their game overall. There are other players that are in the category. I just can't remember, but there are not too many characters that you cannot use some of their moves in competitive play, but the developers have found an easy way to balance, things. Now, why am I even harping on a game like this? Like, could I not look at other shooters? Could I not look at other games? The truth is there are not a lot of other shooters like The Division, so it's really hard to find another game out there that you can make some comparisons with because, I mean, sure, a game like Borderlands will have some of the same similarities, but Borderlands doesn't even come close to the depth of, what The Division actually has to offer because weapons and, skills and, brand sets and gear sets and all of these factors are what make the Division very complicated. And the closest example I could find in, kind of sorting out how they're going to do the PvP was Mortal Kombat 11. And Borderlands doesn't even have PvP. So where are we even going to find that comparison from? And so I thought if they would actually progressively do stuff like that, then eventually, you're able to, find a PvP that's actually balanced. And then one final thing that Mortal Kombat 11 developers did was, even though they had restrictive competitive variations, they eventually opened it up where you could actually come and actually, customize your own competitive character. The only thing was you had to follow the rules of the slot system, and they banned some moves from being used in competitive play. So if you're building a competitive character, those moves will be restricted from you. Or if you're building a character, you still have to follow the rules of the, the way they use the slot system. A character like Jackie, if you notice, she's got like she's got 3 slots, but all her abilities are one slot moves, which is what makes her very dangerous. This character is one of the hardest hitting characters in this game. But again, check out something that they've actually done. She has one of the lowest health in the game. This is a fighting game standard. They do this in many fighting games. But if this character kicks you in the head, you're dead. I mean, it's literally, it's a death sentence. So a lot of these mechanisms are something that I feel it doesn't mean they're going to use the exact same thing in Division 2, but I believe strongly that the Division 2 developers need to think very carefully about the way the PvP works in this franchise. Now, for those who have said, the rumor came out, oh, the Division 2, the next Division game might not have PvP and this and that. The truth is, we have a PvP community that you actually do want in this ecosystem. I get it. We have enough PvE players to run a full game in the Division, but there is an aspect to the PvP game that I've seen that is beneficial. And as somebody who doesn't play PvP, by the way, in the Division 2, I'll tell you that, the PvP community, or people who want to play PvP more, they are also PvE players. Where are they going to get their gear from? They get their gear from the same activities that we do. And so this is pretty much how, we're able to kind of go together and say, okay, these are, these are some of the things that we share in terms of, how do I even call it? In terms of, what really does matter, per, I would say per mode, or, per player type, or whatever it is. And so this is pretty much my video. For those of you who want to see my stats on Mortal Kombat 11, this is one of my accounts. I've played 211 hours on here. I have another PC account where I've played a whole bunch more. And I have a second account as well, which I've also played just, close to that many hours as well. I mean, it's a game that I do play dedicatedly. It's a game that I actually do enjoy, because the PvP really does have a lot of elements that I can tell you, don't even, I mean, they're not to be played with. You cannot find many of those elements in other fighting games. I own a bunch of other fighting games, and, to me, nothing has really come close to what exactly this game is able to bring to the table in terms of RPG elements. And being a Division player and seeing those RPG elements, man, they have kept me playing this game. Plus, the game is quite interesting to me anyways. Now, what's even interesting, and I've said this in other videos before, is a lot of players from the old games don't really like, this game, from the old Mortal Kombat games. They're not really big fans of this game, but I didn't play those old Mortal Kombat games, so this is my jam. So here I got 142 hours, put my 211 hours together, put my 600 hours on PC, which I do have 600 hours on my PC account. You're looking at somebody who's played this game just as much as the Division 2. And so I see those similarities because, they're two games that I've actually engaged in, very extensively. I mean, it's insane. But anyways, I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I know this was a long video, but this is the way I could actually chop it together to try to see if it could make sense for the community. Talk to me. Let's hear your thoughts. Peace out.